there's nothing like a good war, huh? Just kidding. People like Hobbes and Freud suggested that human beings are by instinct warlike, driven by a will to power or death wishes. For them, peace is something imposed from the outside, a denial of our true nature. So maybe peace is never truly possible, just a brief reprieve between bouts of violence. But was it really a peace of the special kind, a peace of mutual harmony and cooperation? Now, there are examples of idealistic leaders who tried to break this cycle. People like Woodrow Wilson, who tried to make the world safe for democracy and who dreamed of a world government to maintain international peace. And yes, I know that sounds crazy. How can I possibly say that a time of mutually assured destruction was somehow peaceful? Well, the answer is that it was. The peace was of a very strange kind, a kind born out of fear. Both sides knew that any spark could ignite a nuclear holocaust, so neither side took any major aggressive action. Conflicts that were once kept in check now flare up with greater frequency and intensity. But as the world body's many failures have shown us, the UN is only as strong as its member nations, and yet most of us struggle to find peace within ourselves. So how can we expect to find a lasting peace with those around us? As the great philosopher Gandhi once said, peace is not merely a distant goal to be sought for. It is a means and a way of life. But can a way of life that is still unfolding ever truly be peaceful? Or is peace ultimately a personal journey, one that requires each of us to first find peace within ourselves? This is why the UN has been unable to stop modern conflicts like the Syrian civil war or the Rohingya genocide. And let's be honest, even if the UN could enforce its resolutions, would that really lead to a lasting peace? Ethnic conflicts in the Congo, cyber attacks by Russia, economic sanctions by the US, territorial clashes in the South China Sea, and of course, the war in Ukraine. Perhaps the problem is not that we live in an overly interconnected world, but that we haven't yet figured out how to properly manage this interconnectivity. So despite all the tensions and proxy wars, there was a sense in which the world did enjoy a kind of uneasy peace. It was a peace hanging by a thread, but a peace nonetheless. But in the end, his idealism was overwhelmed by the hard facts of realpolitik. If you look at history, you'll notice that wars usually come in bunches. On the one hand, the increased interconnectivity of the world economy reduces the chances of war. After all, rich trading partners don't like to go to war with each other. On the other hand, globalization also allows for the rapid spread of ideas, and this has led to clashes between ideologies like communism and capitalism, but also between various forms of nationalism, ethnic identity, and even religion. It's no coincidence that so many of today's conflicts are fought in the shadows of globalization, suggesting that globalization itself is one of the drivers of this historical peace cycle. There's almost always a lull in warfare after a major conflict, a chance for society to regroup and catch its breath before the drums of war start beating once again. The 30 Years' War, the American Civil War, and both world wars are good examples of this phenomenon. In each case, the fighting stopped for a time before flaring up again in a new location. So perhaps peace isn't so much a destination as a pause in the journey, a chance to rest before the next conflict begins. Europe had barely finished one war when it started the next. No, it was a peace imposed by Rome's legions throughout the Mediterranean. It's a peace bought with the blood of countless subjugated peoples, a peace that said, in effect, submit or be destroyed. So perhaps peace is always only an appearance of peace, a thin veneer over a society's underlying violence. I'm just kidding. All jokes aside, was world peace ever truly possible? And if so, when and where was it achieved? What if I told you that according to some of history's greatest philosophers, peace is actually unnatural? But what about those ancient visions of peace, like the ones supposedly enjoyed by the Indus Valley civilization or the early Islamic caliphates? They certainly suggest that peace is not a utopian dream, yet as historians will tell you, religious conflicts are also very frequent. I guess that's why the notion of a secular state was such a radical idea during the French Revolution. If religion and politics are supposed to go together like bread and butter, then peace and religion must also go together like oil and water. In fact, nearly all major religions from Buddhism to Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism have peace as one of their core teachings. It's only in the interpretation and application of these teachings that we see the clashes, which makes you wonder, were those ancient visions of peace simply a product of religion? Religion is a tough one because, as believers will tell you, every major faith calls for peace. Then there's the example of the Pax Romana, which literally means Roman peace. If so, that would make history little more than a cyclical reiteration of the same story. Violence, submission, then more violence. The only time that the world really came close to lasting peace was during the Cold War. Ultimately, I think we can agree that world peace is often less a destination and more a cycle. In the modern era, globalization has complicated this cycle. And yet, for all our talk of globalization, the world has become more fragmented in recent times. Many hope that the UN would be the answer, the institution tasked with maintaining international peace and security. I think we can all agree that peace starts with us as individuals. Many believe it starts with inner peace. All right, everyone, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.